Welcome to the Autonomic Homeostasis Activation Podcast. I'm Tom Powles.
And I'm Ruth Lawrenson. We'll be unpacking what it looks like to activate your brain to holistically manage stress and trauma to facilitate homeostasis.
Being free to experience wellness in body, mind, and spirit.
Thank you for joining us. Let's get this conversation started. Well, we are here and we are in a brand new season. Season 4, Tom. Can you believe it? We've been through many different topics and in this podcast now for a number of years. And we're in a season where we're going to be looking at the wisdom of the brain and how that is connected to your personal growth. And it's really the core of what you do, Tom, in your practice with AHA, autonomic homeostasis activation. And so we're going to unpack the brain. A lot of people are, into neuroscience now and trying to kind of be more interested in how the brain works and understanding the brain's wisdom has been so pivotal for you in your practice for many, many years now.
Yes.
So,
and transformative for many people.
Yes, it has. And so today we're going to, it's like we were talking just a minute ago, just thinking, where on earth do we start? Because this is such a giant topic, which is why it's a season, because we want to really kind of be able to unpack some of these threads. But we're going to start today we're going to look at problem solving, particularly because we were thinking how for so many of us, problem solving is part of our everyday lives, or at least our annual lives. There's these sometimes like little problem solving things that happen, or huge problem solving situations that we find ourselves in. And we're not just talking about math here. We're
No, we're not.
We're talking about what do we do? I feel stuck. I'm grappling with some big issues around sickness or life and death or
careers
or love or relationships and then or just kind of which school should I put my kid into? So that I'm trying to describe the vastness of this, that problem solving it really, really does present itself to us in our lives in small ways and big ways. And so we're going to talk about the brain's wisdom in the context of problem solving, but particularly what we want to start off with today, and this will be a repeating theme here because it's so key, is this the mind-brain dynamic, and what is that, and why the mind is not the brain. How, but there is a mind and there is a brain, and what the relationship is and how that impacts us problem solving. And then we will end, hopefully, with a little bit of an understanding of AHA problem solving, because it's something that you do, you offer to your clients. I've done it myself, and it's really a way of kind of connecting directly with the brain to allow the brain to inform us in our problem solving. So I want us to back right up. Tom, start us off.
Okay. The phrase I really commonly use is the brain has a mind of its own, and it is wise. We have a mind, so we are body, mind, and spirit, and the brain is involved in all of it. The brain and the body, you want to run your pancreas? I don't want to. I just want my brain to deal with my pancreas. I just want homeostasis. And that's what this is all about in the body. But we're not just a body. We have a mind. But the brain has a mind of its own. And when we are thinking, we are using our mind. And the mind is a function of the brain, because the brain is an organ in the body. But we, with our mind, are the user of that organ. just as I may use my other parts of my body, my muscles to move, I use my stomach and intestines to eat and digest food. I use my brain to think.
Mm-hmm.
But those are all also me.
Mm-hmm.
From a holistic perspective, all of those things are me and make up me. But thinking is also me and the way I think about me.
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
Yeah, so what we're talking about here is, and it's interesting, Tom, because I've seen, like, I'll see things on Facebook or like on Instagram and, or courses and all the rest of it. And now, because I've worked with you for such a long time, I've noticed that there's that people tend to use the brain and the mind
Interchangeable.
Yes. And I understand that, but I think there is that it is so helpful to understand that it's a both and. Yes, the mind is a function of the brain, but if we can see the mind is us using the brain, accessing the brain, and then, like you said, but there is something about the brain where it has a mind of its own. And the trick in understanding that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the mind, that's me, is full of all sorts of traumas and perceptions and ways of being stressed that really, when I try and use my brain to think or to problem solve, when I haven't cleared my mind out of all of those things, then it can distort it can, I guess, filter out certain things in the brain, right? Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if we were to personify the brain and think of it as another entity, a lot of times as we are thinking, I would picture the brain rolling its eyes like, seriously? You actually think that? Because that's not real. That is not the way things are. That is not who you are.
So things get lost in translation.
Absolutely.
So the brain, what you're saying is the brain is wise, is truthful.
And it thinks.
Yes.
It has cognitions.
The mind, us, that uses the brain to think is full of, depending on our upbringing, depending on what's happened to us, depending on our personality types and all sorts of things.
And all those things are personality types.
Yes, yeah.
And decisions and problem solutions.
Yeah, and I guess to not understand that affects, I guess what we're saying is if it was pure brain, there would be pure wisdom, pure truth. Is that right?
Yeah.
But then we get involved
as the user,
and we try and access this wisdom, this truth, this problem solving, this thinking, and if we are not aware of what we come with, the baggage in some ways that
the distortions,
then we're not able to sift what is accurate, what is true, what is not true.
Yes, because we have misperceptions, and I don't even know the source of it, but I heard the phrase myth perceptions. We create myths, and out of these misperceptions. So the brain is our access to everything we have ever experienced, everything we have ever learned, and our brain is like that library, that academic institution. That's the repository for all of that information. And with certain parts of the brain, the hippocampus, the prefrontal cortex, personality expression, executive function, problem solving, decision making, anticipation, we're using the brain at its capacity to access prior information.
Mm-hmm.
But the brain is also doing that and able to do that in ways that we are not consciously even focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
So that you are making sounds and I am making sounds and our listeners are hearing us making sounds, it's speech. But it's just sounds that have meaning, and we've learned to assign meaning to the sounds. You're not having to think like if you were in a foreign country and you had a smattering of Spanish or German. I'm thinking, what is the meaning of those sounds? You don't have to do that. We don't have to do that. That's the mind and the brain working together.
Mm-hmm. So essentially it's a good thing. We need the mind needs to work together with the brain, but I guess and it does frequently. But I guess the problem is just the ways of perceiving things, the distortions get in the way.
Absolutely. And that's been rewarded and reinforced. So, for example, people pleasing. That's a huge issue for a whole lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Worried about, does that person like me? Do they not like me? And what do I have to do to get them to like me? And I have significance and I matter because they approve of and admire and accept me. Or perfectionism. I've got to be the best. I've got to get this right. Or control. And I've got to control and direct people and situations. These are where the mind, still using the brain, are using it in ways that are unproductive and unbeneficial. The kind of things that occur with artificial intelligence, and where it's like, what? Because that's modeled on us and the way we think.
Yeah, so let's go into that a little bit, because
Mm-hmm.
AI, I mean, I know this feels like left field, listeners, but actually it's really interesting what's happening right now with AI, because it does show us to some level what's the limits to what's happening in our own brain,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Absolutely.
So they have, I'm not going to even try to explain this, because it is way beyond. I think my brain is like slightly exploding.
Your
right
mind
now.
is.
My mind is.
Yes.
But Tom, in layman's terms,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about how has AI learned so far?
Think of artificial intelligence as an attempt to mimic the way the human brain functions.
Yes.
That's what artificial intelligence is. It was modeled on studies of how the neural networks in our brain function,
Mm-hmm.
and then turning that into algorithms and processes and error calculations, all sorts of math, to try to get a machine to learn.
So what was the first, talk about the back propagation. I can't even remember. I can't even believe I just said that correctly.
Yes.
This is
But
how
you
many
did.
conversations we've had.
So one of the godfathers of artificial intelligence was a cognitive scientist, a neurocognitive scientist, and a math whiz, and combined all of those to try to replicate with a machine how the human brain learns and how the human brain functions. But it's not the human brain. It's just like the neurons and the circuitry of a human brain in a machine. And the original algorithms were formulated on what's called back propagation. And I'm going to perhaps butcher this because I'm just on the periphery of understanding this. But how we learn and how the brain learns is by being introduced to information.
Yeah.
We have experiences, we have information that can be put into bits and bytes and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that information is what we have learned from. And along the way, very simply, there's the ABCs
Mm-hmm.
and 1, 2, 3, and there's math and there's words and there's grammar and all the rest of that. And for you as a human being, in your education and your life experience, you've learned lots of things.
So it's the downloads. We have literally, it's one of the ways that we learn is that we just are absorbing constantly information, right?
Exactly. And that's what AI is doing.
Yeah. So they've allowed AI to just absorb all of this information. So what
You
are
gotta
the
have it.
So talk about like why that isn't enough, and what are some of the problems with that?
Yes. So and it's really critically important to understand that artificial intelligence is modeled on the human brain and the human mind using that brain. There's your problem. Because just as we as human beings are prone to errors in prediction,
Mm-hmm.
artificial intelligence is too. So backpropagation is, and I'm going to grossly oversimplify something incredibly complex, but it's backpropagation is the idea that we get all this information together and then we make predictions of what could be. I understand the concept of 1. I understand the concept of addition. And 1 + 1 is 2. I understand, though, that there are people that don't think that way. And then we're prone to errors and we get 1 + 1 is 3. And we're convinced that that's predictive. Did that make sense? In other words, we've got a body of information and we make predictions about the future.
But if the information is incorrect itself,
or our interpretation of it
yes,
is
then-
incorrect, then we are prone to errors. And in the algorithms, they have built in compensations for error calculations.
Mm-hmm.
And so the problem solving is an attempt to compensate for the errors. It's, for instance, if I really please this person, then I really matter as a human being. You matter as a human being whether that person is pleased with you or not, but that's an error in the prediction.
And so AI has learned from us. It's learned from, just like we know that as a user accessing our brains,
Mhm.
there are going to be errors because of our distortions or
Because of our life experiences,
Yeah,
because we were raised by other humans.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
So we don't assess situations accurately. We assess them sometimes from a trauma informed way, or sometimes we're in fight and flight in our nervous system. So we're receiving information, but we can't actually hear it because
Or internalize it.
Yeah.
We may even know, and we've got a head knowledge or an intellectual understanding, but it's not internalized.
So what we're saying is that AI has been trained in this way to learn from us. So
Yes.
by default, there are going to be errors to that. So what else there, Tom? Well, like, what?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So there's a fundamental issue between the difference between the mind and the brain, because the brain doesn't do that. It's us using the brain that screws it up.
Yeah, and that's important. So it's not that's why we're talking about the distinction between the mind and the brain. Because actually the brain on its own
is just fine. Thank you very much. Would you listen to me?
There's accuracy, there's wisdom, there's truth.
Yes. It deals with things for what they actually are.
But then when we come in and we use the brain, just like I use my computer, right? See it like it's an organ, but it's like that.
I can do all sorts of things. Human beings do all sorts of things that are like, no.
That's when we get into problems.
Yes. And that is the problem of errors in thinking, misperceptions.
And so that's why I don't know whether people have heard, with AI, it's such a big thing right now, isn't it? But it's, we've heard the stories, like these horror stories of, kids getting on it and saying I'm down, and it's telling them to kill themselves. Or, there's these, so that, it's very extreme examples. And yet, but that there are some errors to AI right now, and they're in process of trying to figure it out.
That's the huge problem. And then the human beings with their minds using AI, because it is so powerful, to create all sorts of havoc among human beings. But it's a tool. The fundamental issue, I think, with artificial intelligence is, one, it is artificial. It is not natural. And the intelligence, because it's been modeled on human minds, is not very intelligent. Sometimes it's dumb as a rock.
And so we were talking a couple of weeks ago, one of the things that I'm studying a lot around right now is biomimicry. And that's in its for leadership, because it's the space that I'm in, and biomimicry means it's mimicking nature, right? And we were talking a couple of weeks ago how, even though that name is really cool, and there's so many cool things that are coming off it, but actually there's something kind of missing the point with mimicking.
Yes.
Because if you just mimic something, is that really it? Is that really the wisdom? That's what we were talking about last week. Remember, we were talking about that a few weeks ago. And applying it here, in some ways, AI is trying to mimic.
We are trying with AI to mimic the way the brain functions.
Yes. And what we were talking about a few weeks ago, which I found really profound, Tom, actually, was that it's kind of mimicking is a step in the right direction, at least within terms of nature. But there's something more about, instead of just mimicking, it's being present with, it's being immersed in nature. Is very different from just mimicking it.
And informed by it.
Yes. And so where I'm going with this is AHA, because I think what I've understood about what autonomic homeostasis activation is, especially when it comes to problem solving, is that it's a way in which we're able to be present, not just mimic the brain, mimic something, but be present with the brain and then be informed by it accurately.
Yes. Without
the mind cluttering it up.
Yes. So what we're talking about conceptually is what I describe as cognitive homeostasis. So with AHA itself, that's somatic homeostasis, and it is homeostasis for storing that stable, steady state within a range of somatic functioning, which has an effect on stress, anxiety, depression, anger. And no matter how high those are, if we let the brain engage in the involuntary neurobiological activity, by the end of the AHA session, if we don't interfere, then no matter how high we rated the sense of stress, anxiety, depression, anger, they're all zero. And that can seem like a miracle. That's the somatic homeostasis. The cognitive homeostasis, the AHA problem solving, is where the brain itself engages in cognition, thinking, but it's the brain itself doing the thinking, and we hear it. So if you've ever had the experience, and these are called involuntary autobiographical cognitions, it's a literal aha moment. It's where you've been trying to figure something out and I just can't understand. I can't figure this out. Or I'm trying to remember something and I just can't remember. And then we stop, but the brain may continue below the level of conscious awareness to arrive at the understanding, to recall the information, to find a solution to a problem. And then when it's done that, and that's the brain processing the information, it brings that into our conscious awareness, and we have that, oh, I know, or oh, I understand now, or oh, I remember now. That's the eureka moment. That's the involuntary autobiographical cognition. That's the involuntary autobiographical memory. But the brain has been thinking.
So basically, it's when the brain breaks through.
Yep.
Yeah. So and we've all probably had those times where
absolutely.
we're not trying, like with our mind, we're not using our computers.
No, we've stopped.
We've stopped.
And the brain says, oh, good.
There's an opening.
The idiot has stopped doing it. Let me help you understand.
And then we get a thought, and it just comes in and it brings clarity and it feels.
Yep.
So that happens to most, like everyone, right? So
research shows.
So what is AHA?
Multiple times a day, most people have 1, 2, 3 or more of those.
Oh wow!
Yep.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yep, it's very common.
Okay, so AHA is cognitive, not somatic.
The
cognitive.
AHAPS.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The problem solving is where we, as an extension of the somatic homeostasis, so with the sympathetic flight or fight standing down, which frequently disturbs our thinking. If I'm in flight or fight, my solutions might not be really great solutions, just more problems. And I'm acting out of, and I'm thinking influenced by stress, anxiety, depression, anger. So my thinking's not really going to be great. And with the as an extension of when the body is in homeostasis, what AHAPS allows the brain to do is to engage in the involuntary autobiographical cognitions. And then we hear that, not the end result of the below conscious level of awareness, understanding, but we hear it occurring at a conscious level. That's my discovery, and that's revolutionary because then the brain is informing the mind not of the end result, but of the process of how it's getting there. And because it's our own brain and we're hearing it, we're doing it. It's just how.
Yeah, so as we close out this session, we're going to just share a couple of examples from real AHA problem-solving sessions.
Yep. These people have given me permission to share these things.
So the first one, so what typically happens is Tom will ask the client, well, what are we dealing with?
What's some issue that you just can't figure out?
Yeah. And then at the beginning, they will activate and get into that space.
The somatic homeostasis.
And then they will literally ask their brains.
They'll say a question out loud, not to think about and not for us to process. They just say a question out loud. Their brain hears the question. And in the absence of them thinking about it or us talking about it, involuntary autobiographical cognitions just occur at a conscious level.
And
they're literally hearing their brain think.
And is this right, Tom? At the beginning, you kind of get a little bit of their mind coming in, like
sometimes. But the idea is to not think.
Yeah.
It's like if I was to say, I don't want you to think about this. I'm just going to say a word out loud
Mhm.
and just tell me what comes into your awareness.
Yeah.
Blue.
Balloon.
See?
Yeah.
That is an association that you have,
Hmm.
and the brain does that, and we can hear it.
Yeah.
That just automatically happens.
So really what we're doing is what happens naturally dispersed through our days, these autobiographical cognitions
Yep.
that literally
Are
break
involuntary.
through, involuntary ones. In what AHA PS session is doing is almost getting to the point where that can happen for a
Yep.
whole session.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
So there's some issue, some problem I can't figure out.
Uh-huh.
We put it in the form of a question. The question is said out loud as the person has engaged somatic homeostasis, and then they just listen and they say out loud these thoughts that are involuntarily occurring to them that are the brain thinking.
Mm-hmm.
The brain is doing the thinking. And then they
Okay.
say it out loud, and I take dictation.
Yeah.
Because the brain's a therapist.
So for the listeners, we've got a couple of examples, and this is one session. So Tom, why don't you share just the question
Okay.
that this person said?
Okay. And this, I'll begin with one about health,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very common one. The word is hypochondria. We have, that feels like, something is wrong. I must have a brain tumor. Or, yes. And we have these irrational thoughts about our health. This is very common, very common. The majority of people who go to see a doctor are experiencing this, which is why so many of the doctor visits are, I can't give you any reason medically that you're experiencing that. That doesn't mean it's not real. It just means that it is not somatic and an illness or a disease or an injury. The body is suffering. That's real. It's why and how it's suffering. And then the way we think about the pain or the upset. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this was with someone who was actually physically very healthy, but as is commonly occurring, we have aches and pains. Things hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Something may not digest well or something. And then what does the mind do with that? Okay. So the question was, what would be a beneficial shift in the way I think about my health? And that was the question that was posed to the brain. And this person just started sharing these involuntary autobiographical cognitions, these involuntary thoughts that she heard in her brain, in her mind. She sensed it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what would be a beneficial shift in the way I think about my health? She asked the question, then she just listened. And this is what her brain said. Stop thinking about it. Trust what my body is doing. Don't put so much emphasis on it. Have less anxiety over every little symptom that comes up. Shift your thinking. Don't catastrophize. Accept what your body is thinking or feeling and then let it go. Don't assume the worst. Don't let it take over your thinking. And then her mind interjected, how do I think about it when that is all I feel? But that was also an involuntary thought.
Mm-hmm.
There's an overlap. And almost like a dialogue. How do I not think about it when that is all I feel? Accept it and then move on. Or name it and then move on. Remember that your body is working and trying to heal, and that could bring some of the symptoms. Everything is not always bad. How can my body heal so I don't have to deal with this? Rest and time. How do I get time to rest enough? Stop doing everything. I can't and don't want to do that. The dialogue between the mind and the brain. Make it a point to rest and relax. Schedule in rest time. Simplify things if you can. Ask for help. Make rest a priority. I need to make time to rest.
Amazing.
And because those were thoughts that her own brain was having, it was already internalized. Another example is someone who is struggling with abandonment. And abandonment is a very common when we've been neglected or abandoned, especially in childhood. Then we come to just need love and reassurance, and it's okay, but we can't do it for ourselves.
Yeah.
And we might even be loved. We might even be cared for, but we don't feel it. We don't resonate with it. This is a very common human experience. Okay. So the question was, why do I think I am being abandoned when I'm not loved tenderly? She asked the question out loud. Here's what the brain responded with. Because I think it is true. I am not loved. Not loved is abandonment. It feels alone. It feels alone, so I am alone. I need to be loved. I want to be loved. There's not another way. What choice do I have? I can't make him love me. I want him to love me. That feels validating. Who am I if I'm not loved? If I'm not admired by those closest to me, where does that leave me? How do I even function? How do I live if I am not loved? It doesn't seem possible. So the brain has framed the problem. Here's your problem. And then the next thought was, I want to be free. Solution. Free from the bondage of others. Free from the desperate need to be loved. It doesn't seem possible. How could that be possible? It feels so real. I don't even know what real is. What would a different way look like? See, it's generating the solution. Can I believe that I'm not loved without depending on other people for that? Other people feel necessary. I just need them to love me. I want them to love me. I want them to accept me even if I am difficult. I am difficult. Can I be loved in that? I'm not sure. I want to be sure. I am accepted just as I am. Is that true? I want that to be true. I hope it is true. I can accept myself. I can accept myself even when it feels like others don't love me. I like that. I want to live in that. That feels like freedom. Can I let go of others loving me? I don't know. But I am letting go. I have been letting go. I can let go. I am capable of letting go. I am stronger than I thought. I'm not as needy as I thought. I can appreciate myself. I can love myself. I can be who I was created to be. That is what I really want. That is my true deepest desire. I can change. I can be loved. I can allow God to love me. I can allow myself to love me. I can be me. I don't have to be what other people want me to be. I can just be. That is so crazy. That is why I say the brain has a mind of its own.
Mm-hmm.
We just didn't know we could ask it and hear it.
Mm. And so what we're seeing there with AHA problem solving is this way to kind of access the brain, be present with the brain in the purest sense.
Exactly.
Yeah, really. And what people see is that they're able to solve these ongoing issues that they've had, whether it's health or, relationships or belonging or
these
all sorts of things.
misperceptions,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and then the solutions to the problems, which are just more problems.
Mm-hmm.
And the brain says, I got some thoughts on that. You want to hear?
Mm-hmm.
We just didn't know how to ask. And then that changes everything. And that can have implications even for artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we were to train artificial intelligence on actually rational problem solutions and perceptions, it would be less artificial and it would be far more intelligent.
Yeah. So good, Tom. Well, I'm looking forward to the next conversation
Mm-hmm.
and where we're able to really focus in on the brain and the wisdom of the brain, especially when it comes to our own personal growth, which I think so many of us
That's
are
the point.
interested in. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
You've been listening to the Autonomic Homeostasis Activation Podcast. Join us next time as we continue in our conversations with Tom.
If you're interested in pursuing your own wellness journey, please check out our website, autonomichealing.org.
You can also reach out to Tom at innerworkings.org.